One more recap here. Today I'll be explaining a movie called Crank from 2006. The film starts with a wicked introduction of Chev, a highly skilled assassin who knows how to do the job. The opening sequence gives a brief look into his high-power action caliber, leaving the enemy in a complete mess. It is revealed that Chev doesn't operate on an independent basis. He is employed by another bad guy named Carlito. One fine day, his boss changes Chev's life and drastically changes the course of events in his journey. Carlito orders Chev to take out a Chinese bad guy, his competitor. As usual, Chev completed the deed and took out the competition. The crazy events in the film start to pan out after this assassination. Chev wakes up from his sleep and is unable to regain much consciousness. When Chev finally regains control, his vision is unclear, and he struggles to get up. As Chev gets near the television set, he notices a CD placed there. Chev plugs in the CD, and a guy named Ricky informs him about his condition. Ricky states that Chev has been injected with a particular kind of poison. This leaves Chev as a total mess. Initially, he starts to break down and destroy things. Soon enough, Chev gets himself together and gets inside a car. He immediately dials up Kalo. He takes the help of Kalo to retrieve Ricky's location and keeps him on the check. Chev lands himself in a nightclub and threatens one of the guys to rat out on Ricky. When he learns that none of the guys have any clue about Ricky, he immediately leaves in his car. We begin to notice the consistently deteriorating condition of Chev, as he can't even drive properly. This is when Chev dials up his doctor, Miles. He relays all the symptoms that he has been dealing with and asks for his assistance. Upon hearing this, Miles tells Chev that Ricky injected him with a special kind of drug that hampers his adrenaline production, also known as the Chinese cocktail. Miles explains that he will need to constantly pump up the adrenaline in his body to keep going. Failing to do so will result in his death. Therefore, Chev decides to take it upon himself to get the adrenaline high. At first, he gets into a hot pursuit with cops, which results in his car crashing inside a mall. Later, he escapes the car stuck inside the mall's escalators and goes outside. Chev finds himself in a taxi and throws the passenger out of it. Later on, he continuously moves himself in order to restore the adrenaline rush. He also robs a nearby mall and gets plenty of energy drinks to sustain himself. Chev finds a way towards Carlito's mansion. He meets the boss inside a swimming pool and tries to make sense of the situation that he has been in. This is when Carlito informs him that he is aware of the drug that he was injected with. Carlito states that right after the rival gang's assassination, the enemies were after him, and to calm the situation down, he offered Chev as the lamb for their sacrifice. Therefore, everything happening to Chev since the injection is indirectly Carlito's fault. At that juncture, Chev doesn't do anything but leave without causing a scene. He then takes control of the taxi and gets more information from his doctor, Miles. The doctor states that he will need particular drugs from a hospital to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Kalo lets him know about the location of Ricky's brother. Chev immediately encounters Alex, Ricky's brother. At first, he gets into an engaging combat with him. He uses all means of brutal action to decipher the location of Ricky. However, Alex remains adamant and fights back against Chev. This is when Kalo enters the scene and distracts Alex. The assassin takes advantage of this and shoots Alex. Later on, Chev disguises himself to break into a hospital to procure the drug that Miles informed him about. Soon enough, Chev is recognized by the staff, and he tries to escape. Chev takes a nurse at gunpoint and gets the drug through him. Chev also realizes that his heart rate is really low and that he needs to think something fast. Chev orders the nurse to give him an electric shock. The nurse proceeds and sends him flying through the elevator. After a while, Chev wakes up from the shock and realizes that the cops are after him. Chev immediately makes use of his gun to keep them outside while he buys some more time. Chev finally takes the drug and gets himself overdosed. This is when he escapes the hospital and leaves the scene. Next, Chev is seen escaping everyone and running like crazy. The assassin becomes completely hyperactive and tries to calm himself down. He also takes notice of a crowd gathered to look at several posters. It turns out that the cops have issued a lookout notice for Chev and that he is on the run from the authorities. This lands Chev in double danger, as not only does he have to keep his adrenaline level high, but he also has to escape the cops. The scene shifts back to Ricky. The mobsters are informed about Alex's demise. This leaves him infuriated as he decides to close the chapter on Chev once and for all. This time, he doesn't want to give him a slow elimination, but a final blow. This is when Eve enters the picture. She is revealed to be Chev's girlfriend. The assassin checks upon her to make sure that she is safe and sound. Moreover, he informs her that he will be at the place very soon. Chev makes use of a cop's bike and steals the wheels to reach Eve. Finally, Chev lands at Eve's place and decides to take her out. Meanwhile, He also deals with one of Ricky's assassins and eliminates him right on the spot. He also makes sure that Eve is distracted while he overpowers the bad guy. Right after this, the couple has lunch at a restaurant. This is when Chev reveals that he is a professional assassin and that he is in great trouble. Due to this, even Eve is also in grave danger. Eve is surprised to hear all this and doesn't know how to react. At first, she leaves and assumes that Chev is breaking up with her. Chev decides to follow her and suffers another collapse. Left with no choice, Chev and Eve get close to each other, so that Chev revives his adrenaline levels. This becomes a spectacle for the nearby crowd that gathers around and cheers for the duo. Once Chev is normal, he gets a call from Kalo, who states that Ricky is present in a nearby warehouse. Chev immediately leaves the scene. Upon reaching the place, he finds that he has been set up. The assassin's friend is eliminated by Carlito's gang, and he is called here for elimination too. This prompts Chev to start a gunfight with the bad guys. He starts to shoot at them and gets a heavy fire in return. Suddenly, Chev watches Eve inside the building and is shocked to see her. The assassin makes use of his skill to overpower the bad guys and dodges the shots. However, one of the guys hits Chev on his leg and he suffers a wound. This is also when he reunites with Eve, and they both escape the danger. Before leaving, Chev has to eliminate several bad guys and protect Eve simultaneously. This also includes a sewing machine scene, where a bad guy suffers a graphic fate at the hands of Chev. Once they are outside the building, a chase ensues. Chev and Eve are followed by the bad guys, who keep firing shots at them. This leads to an intense action-packed scene between Chev and Carlito's gang. Chev manages to overpower the vehicles and lose their sight. Soon enough, he gets a call from Miles, who informs him that he is back in the city. This comes as a short relief to Chev, who immediately pays him a visit. When Chev reaches, the doctor gives him the required drugs. He also informs Chev that this is only a temporary measure, as sooner or later he will succumb to the injection given by Ricky. The doctor also advises him to help with his painless elimination, but Chev refuses. He states that he has some final battle with Ricky. This is when the assassin rings him up and proposes a plan to meet in a hotel room. When the meeting is set, Chev bids Eve adieu and leaves for the final battle. Moreover, Chev also promises Eve to return once all the mess is settled. Chev reaches the building and is escorted to the top by two of the gang members. When Chev reaches there, he finds Ricky and Carlito sitting side by side. The former boss prepares another dose of the same injection and plans to give it to Chev. Right after this, Chev pretends to shoot at one of the bad guys, and he gets taken down by surprise. The big twist in the film finally arrives. Chev reveals that he did not eliminate Kim, the leader, as shown in the start. Instead, he let him live and advised him to skip town for a while. As a return favor, Kim arrives with his men to eliminate Chev's enemies. This move leads to total chaos, as no one was expecting Kim to show up at this crucial stage. Now Chev not only has the advantage, but with his skills, he just might take the bad guys down. This leads to a full-throttle gunfight between the gangs. At first, shots get fired from both ends, and everyone looks to dodge it. The whole roof becomes a mess, as the bad guys fire from all directions and turn the place into a wreck. Carlito gets badly injured in the shootout, as he is no match for Kim's men. Carlito tries to find a place to hide, and immediately calls his helicopter to land on the roof. As soon as Carlito tries to climb up the stairs to reach the chopper, Chev spots him. This leads him to a place of no return, as Chev takes notice of the cowardly act. He follows him from behind and prevents him from reaching the helicopter. A weakened Chev is still powerful enough to show Carlito his position. This is when Ricky comes from behind and surprises everyone. He stabs Chev with another dose of the same poison and leaves him on the ground. Right after, he gets mad at Carlito for leaving him behind and shoots him too. Ricky gets rid of Carlito's body and gets on the helicopter. As the chopper prepares to take off, out of nowhere, Chev grabs Ricky. It is revealed that Chev is conscious, and he attacks Ricky with all his might. At first, Ricky seems to overpower the assassin. However, soon enough, Chev takes the lead and attacks him back. At last, both the men fall off the helicopter. In a surreal falling down scene, Chev chokes Ricky and then eliminates him. Later on, a falling Chev dials up his phone and records his last message. Finally, Chev falls down and lands directly on a truck, thereby bouncing like a ball and then landing on the road. In the final frames of the film, we find Chev with his eyes open, lying on the ground, thereby revealing that the professional hitman is still alive and breathing. However, what will be the next course of his events remains a mystery.